I don't know enough about that subject. Yeah, let's sing it one more time. I'm still learning and I haven't formed an opinion on that. Whew. Christmas number one. In this divided world, how do we keep having productive conversations? And not conversations where it's like, I'm right and here are 10 TikTok reasons why. But how do we enter into spaces with knowledge and also humility? I'm becoming increasingly depressed with social media, and I don't think that's too strong a word. I think it's stronger than disappointed. I think it's stronger than tired. I think it's stronger than demoralized. And I think it's probably due to this problem that I talked about in my Mean Girls video, which is this whole ethos of calling somebody stupid doesn't make you any more clever or cleverer. Calling somebody tainted doesn't make you any more pure. And these thoughts coincided with me thinking, like, I have loads more of you here. Hi. This channel has grown a lot recently and I wanted to give you an opportunity to get to know me more. But then what are the things that are most important about me that you should know? And I don't think it is where I live, what my kitchen looks like, what my previous relationships were like. Actually, what is both most important to me and also the thing I hold loosest is my values. The things I believe about the world through my own experiences and also my reading and my education, and how I genuinely think things could go and should go in the future. And the problem with holding those things so close to me, and they're really important, is that they're also admittedly shouldn't be too much part of my identity. One human can only have so much information, and I can't honestly enter into a space with another human being I disagree with and be closed off to the possibility that I might have to change any of my opinions. I am about to turn 31, and when I was 21, I believed quite a lot of different things about the world. I was doing the political compass quiz the other night and I realised there were so many questions that I would have answered so differently 10 years ago. And then I made me think, like, which of these questions will I answer differently in 10 years to come when I'm 41? The political compass is this collection of 62 questions that's supposed to place you on these two axes. Axes? I never know. See? I know nothing. Axes. I'm pretty sure it's axes. They're supposed to place you on these two axes and tell you what you believe, and you can map yourself against Gandhi and Thatcher. It's all very entertaining. But I was watching a video that I'll link up here about how it's not really that helpful. It's not the most accurate kind of thing, and it has a lot of left-leaning questions in it that lead people more to the left if they agree and more to the polar right if they disagree. So today I wanted to use an alternative quiz that they recommend called the 8 Values. This video is also very kindly sponsored by our ethereal overlords Skillshare, and I'll be talking about them later in the video. So the 8 Values quiz is a political quiz that is assigned to give you percentages and show you where you are on these 8 scales. The scales are equality, markets, nation, globe, liberty, authority, tradition and progress. From there, I think it'd be really interesting to talk to somebody one notch down to you or one notch up. I've talked about this theory of like looking beside you about who you're disagreeing with rather than looking directly at the person opposite you to change minds. What I like about this quiz is that it does have a medium button. I actually think that this is the most vital to any of our discussions, is admitting where our biases might be and also where we got our information from. The political compass is just strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Whereas this thing in the middle, ding, 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 that's what we need. So I'm going to be doing this quiz as a way to open up discussions and also maybe give you some thoughts on how to open up discussions with people that you disagree with. Because unfortunately, when we say doing the work, I think that maybe we're still thinking about discussions as combat. You versus me, I'll win you over and you will look impotent at the end of that. And I've had a lot of really interesting discussions recently. I don't know if you've ever had a phone conversation with somebody that you disagreed with on Twitter, but would recommend. And I've realised that if we are to change the world and make it a quite nice place, we're often never going to get to be the hero of a discussion like that. When I've changed my values, some of them being a lot more right-wing than they have been now, where I consider myself quite left left wing, one person didn't win me over. One person didn't get to say, I changed Lena's mind. It was small conversations where people opened up to me about what they were thinking and why they built their opinions around those thoughts that slowly swung me into a different direction. And I always say this, but I feel like I'm not really that interested in talking to anybody who has never changed their opinion about anything. Somebody who believes exactly what they believed when they were 15. I either don't believe you, or I imagine that you won't have much to contribute to the world. And I think it's sometimes the people who are embarrassed that they used to believe a different way to the way they believe now, that don't feel like they should be involved in these kind of movements or changes or discussions. And I think that's completely wrong. I think if you have changed your mind in the past, you have so much to offer. You're going to be, I don't want to say you'd be so useful, you're not a tool, you're a person, but I'm really passionate about trying to find common ground from which to understand an opposite opinion to yours. On that note, I found it very interesting that the second result when you type in the political compass is Ben Shapiro doing the political compass. This is the problem, I think, sometimes with the way we debate, is that that we debate at all, is that we have very simplistic ways of explaining why we disagree with somebody because we've almost forgotten why. So if somebody was to ask me, why do you disagree with Ben Shapiro, which I obviously do, I might have said at some point, oh, he's just really right-wing. That's why I disagree with him. He's just right-wing. But it's actually way more specific than that. And if I went through these questions and I counted, and actually of the 62 questions on the political compass, me and Ben agree on 26 of them. 26! Sometimes for completely different reasons. But wouldn't that be a great place to start were I in a room with Ben Shapiro and I was like, Ben, let's talk. I was reading this book recently, it was critiquing this lilt, this quirk in the English language that means that when you mean to say, I didn't get that, or I don't understand, you say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Because inherently, in the English language, not knowing has shame attached. Quizzes like this remind me that I don't only need to have opinions, but I also need to understand to the best of my ability why I have those opinions and be able to cite them well. And also have the humility to say, I'm not qualified to know about that. I don't know enough about that to make a statement about it either way. And I will either go away and find out about that, or I'll find a trusted source to act on my behalf based on what I believe. Other people call those experts. So with all that discussion out the way, let's get to know me through the 8 values quiz. Let's go. What am I doing? Why am I doing this on the internet? Okay, let's go. Do it. Oh, it gives you an out. Wait, never mind. Okay. Number 1, oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. Agree, because you can vote out governments, ideally. It is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Strongly agree. The freer the market, the freer the people. I hate this slogan. I'm gonna agree, but not strongly disagree, because I think that's a more complicated question. So I'm just going to say disagree. It's better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. Strongly disagree. But also, they're not mutually exclusive. Publicly funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it to the market. Strongly agree, otherwise we would have male contraceptives by now, dear God. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. Do you know what? It's early in the quiz to say this, but I'm going to say unsure, because I actually don't know enough about that to make any judgment. I haven't read that much about it. It would seem to me on the surface like that would be a good thing. From each according to his ability to each according to his needs. Labour for life. Well, probably not, but Labour for life so far. Strongly agree. It would be best if social programmes were abolished in favour of private charity. Strongly disagree. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. I'm going to say strongly agree in our current situation, but ideally we'd have a more fair wealth distribution, so we wouldn't have to tax the rich that much, because the poor would have more, and also the rich wouldn't be making so much that we'd have to tax them. Like, tax is a really stupid way to level the playing field that should have been kept more level in the first place. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. It said publicly owned and not government owned, and that's why I will strongly agree with it. Let's go. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. Disagree. Those with greater ability to pay should receive better healthcare. I'm going to say disagree, but I'm not going to say strongly disagree, because I think there's a discrepancy here between between the quality of the healthcare, in that whether you live or die, how fast you're on a transplant list, you know, the vitals, and if there are diptyque candles in your hotel room, and if the paint looks nice, and that experience. Like, I don't think that experience is inherently important. It would be nice if everybody got it, but I would be okay living in a society where people wanted to pay for like weird shit. Quality education is a right of all the people. Strongly fucking agree, get me on board with that. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. Strongly agree. I support regional unions such as the European Union. I do. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. No more. It's important to maintain our national sovereignty. That's a very leading question, and I understand that there are people who completely disagree with me that are gonna reply in the same way, but I'm going to say agree, because if there is no national sovereignty in general, then votes don't mean anything and democracy can completely crumble. That being said, I think that nations should be smaller. Our votes should mean more, and giving over some parts of sovereignty to a very vital, bigger body of countries is a good thing. But anyway, I'm going to say agree, but it has conditions. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. Strongly disagree, that sounds awful. It's more important to maintain peaceful relations than to further our strength. Is that economic strength? Spiritual strength? Side note, I would like to switch things up and measure our strength, whatever that means, in GHP, gross happiness product. We just need to measure what strength means in so many different ways. Differently. I'm going to say agree, because I feel like this insinuates that you should invade other countries to make your country stronger. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. Not individual other countries, no, because if you're declaring war, I'm going to say, do you know what? I'm unsure. Not neutral, but I'm unsure. And I feel like I have a lot of strong opinions about it, but this is such an essentialist question that there's no way of me answering it without being incredibly informed. International aid is a waste of money. I mean, strongly disagree with me, especially if you live in Britain like me. We owe a lot of people a pint and also all of their artifacts, and that would just be the beginning. So, my nation is great. Ooh, cliffhanger, I know! Just wanted to give you a little tiny break and intermission to tell you about our ethereal overlords in the sky, Skillshare. Since reading this book, I've become very aware that as a non-expert, I do have trouble understanding facts in context, and I'm very rarely presented with news that helps me understand the scale and the impact of what I'm reading. Enter this book, Britain by Numbers, which shows you information about Britain in context through the medium of art. Now, when I'm scrolling through Skillshare, there are thousands of classes. Essay writing, poetry, activism, journalism, but it comes as no surprise that this month I was absolutely drawn to Catherine Madden's class on visual thinking. Drawing data to communicate ideas. It's a really super straightforward class on drawing facts in a way to help people make decisions with data and on how to express your own ideas in a clearer and more thoughtful way. I really liked that even though the class was like an hour long, it really felt like she was really gently taking you through every step, and I felt really equipped at the end to make a drawing. Oh, I made a drawing. Now, I don't think any action towards change is irrelevant in any way, but I wanted a way to visually represent my thoughts on the impact and exposure of what we do. Like, how effective is what we do versus how visible is it? I've made a clout axis here and then an effort axis here, and then I've put in loads of different things you can do and then kind of heat mapped them. In theory, the colder the colour, the softer the impact, the warmer the colour, the stronger the impact, but I don't know if I agree with all my colours, so this is just me experimenting. The clout scale goes from a non to maximum clap. So down here I've put the pithy tweet because you get a lot of clout for it, but it doesn't take any effort really, and I'm not sure how much impact it actually has outside of your own echo chamber, versus something like changing your parents' minds is pretty much almost anonymous, no one would know, and it takes a lifetime of time investment, but I think that has quite a lot of impact. You're welcome to pause the video and have a look, but I even done a little self-own here because making a video does take more time than a TikTok dance, but way less time than writing a book, and I do get a bit of clout for it, but it's also not like directly aimed at anyone. I'm not like tagging anyone, I'm just leaving the information out there for people to find. And so yeah, if nothing else, I think a diagram like this would start some conversations, and probably I already disagree with myself a little bit, but the point is the class really helped me think about this idea of layering data and helped me think through the reality of my ideas, like how do I back them up, how do they look in context. It helped me get a new perspective on my own ideas and hopefully make me better at explaining them in future. Like the visual thinking class, most classes are under an hour. They come in bite-sized chunks, they can fit around any kind of schedule. or attention span. There's literally millions of people on there learning, so you're never really alone. And it's less than $10 a month for an annual subscription, which is pretty sweet considering it's like one of those purchases that nobody needs to fly to you, nobody needs to wrap in plastic. Knowledge lasts a lifetime, you know? I really appreciate you sticking around for these sponsored segments, and as a thank you, obviously I had to make sure there was something in it for you. So if you want to take this class or any others, there is a big opportunity to have it for free. I know. There is such thing as a free lunch, turns out. The first 1,000 people to click the link in my description, down there, will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. So if that class or other ones like it sound in any way interesting to you, do not just sit there scratching your chin. Click the link below, learn some stuff, and maybe help us all explain ourselves to each other a little bit better in this messy, chaotic, but I still stubbornly believe essentially beautiful world. Now, should we find out what Lena's got to say about this question now? We can't put it off any longer. Come on. My nation is great. I'm going to remain neutral because I think the establishment of Britain and a lot of the rich people in history that have come from Britain are ungreat, solidly ungreat. But the nation is like also just all of the people in it right now, presently, and all the soil on it, and lots of other factors. So I'd hate to say I hate my nation. So I'm going to remain neutral because I don't understand that question enough. I don't think that has enough detail in it to answer properly. Research should be conducted on an international scale. Strongly agree. Governments should be accountable to the international community. Strongly agree. And I like that as an international community rather than accountable to other governments individually. So they're different things. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. I'm going to say disagree because as a woman I wouldn't have a vote if we didn't have some violence, and I hate that, and it shouldn't be that way. But right now I can't honestly answer that question neutrally. And that's one of the questions that I definitely would have answered when I was like 21 as like, no, agree, we should never have violence. Whether I would do violence is another question, but I understand why when you're protesting an authoritarian government, violence is the last resort. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. It's a disagree, but 21-year-old Lena would like to ask you if you have a minute to hear about Jesus Christ. The general populace makes poor decisions. Now, I've worked at a customer service desk and I've been in the comments of my COVID video, so I really want to put agree here, but I am going to remain neutral because I think the general populace makes kind and clever decisions when they are educated correctly and they don't have generations worth of class scarring. See, this is why I'm like, if I was drunk and we were at a party right now, which there are no words to express how much I wish that were true, we could have a discussion about that now and it would be fun and we'd get somewhere probably. Do you see what I mean? Even if you disagreed with me or we both felt the same, these questions elicit more thoughts for me, even if they're not completely helpful. Physician-assisted suicide should be legal. I'm going to say agree on this because I've watched some documentaries that have made me see that maybe it shouldn't be my decision what happens with that, and it seems very complicated. So in the same way that even if you disagree with abortion to the extent that you would not have one, I still think making it illegal is wrong. In the same way, like my gut instinct to be like, we should never use that as a... I just don't want to put a legal barrier on it. Does that make sense? I'd love to watch and read more about that, you know. I don't really feel like I know enough about it to be strong either way, so I'm going to say agree. But if you have any resources about that below, I'd love to hear it because it's really interesting. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. Hi Bill from MI6 looking straight at me in the webcam of my MacBook. Hi! Surveillance and checking are different things, right? So the government checking my tax return different from surveillance, as in like surveying me on things that aren't really their business. Ooh, I'm gonna say a soft disagree, but I'm not sure about that. Regardless of political opinions, it's important to side with your country. It's a disagree for me. All authority should be questioned. Totally, strongly agree. That's one of the things me and Ben agreed on. Hey Ben.
Why don't you just say that you're on the left?
Biz, me and you. A hierarchical state is best. Strongly disagree. Does anybody think that they should... Maybe we shouldn't implement this into Tinder so that we actually know who we're going on dates with. Because when I was on Tinder, I could really save myself some time and some gin by having some of these questions on Tinder. It's important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. Depends if we had proportional representation and an overhaul of the voting system. So for future voting, when democracy sorts itself out, then I would say, I can't, I'm neutral. It's stressing me out too much. I'm thinking of too many scenarios in my head. I think this quiz is also showing that like having absolutes without the details of each situation is so, and like not just in this quiz, but in ourselves, I think we have a lot of absolutes, like an eye for an eye, redistribute the wealth, that need unpacking and applying to specific situations so we don't just default to them without looking at what's in front of us. Does that make sense? Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Oh, I love this question. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Yeah, I feel like it is. I feel like it's more. But what is the more? I'm going to say strongly agree, but I'm going to work on my answer because I don't feel like I have a fully formed one for you. But I do really feel facts aren't feelings, but some feelings are fact. Computer has an error, please reboot. Environmental regulations are essential. It's a strongly agree. A better world will come from automation, science and technology. With morals applied? Yes, strongly agree. Religion should play a role in government. Strongly disagree. Churches should be taxed the same way other institutions are taxed. Coming from a former employee of the Church of England? Strongly agree. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. Strongly agree. Society was better many years ago than it is now. For who? Strongly disagree. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Depends on the culture, but reason that prioritizes human dignity and health and survival should always trump culture. But I understand that culture is also important to me and to lots of people, and it can also be hella fun. I'm going to say agree, but that's why I'm saying not strongly agree. Drugs should be legalised or decriminalised. Does that mean or both? I think they should be decriminalised. Legalised depends on the drug. Strongly agree. No. Change my mind. It's important that we should do that. Make changing minds cool again. Was it ever cool? Make changing minds cool. Agree. Same-sex marriage should be legal. Woo! Strongly agree. No cultures are superior to others. I don't like this question because you're asking the question like when we associate culture with race or culture with nationhood or, you know, culture with a part of the world. Then I'd say strongly agree. If the culture is like the culture on the news floor of the Daily Mail, that's an inferior culture. And if your culture is based on hatred or... I don't like the equating of culture with race or nationhood. They should all be in the same discussion, but they are different things. So I'm going to say just agree. Sex outside of marriage is immoral. Strongly disagree. But again, 20-year-old Lena would have had a word to say about that. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. That sounds like it's an instructive or like something that they're going to be punished for not doing. I don't like that. But I think it's important that they're assimilated into society and that they feel welcome and connected to the place that they live in. I'm going to say neutral because I don't like the wording. I don't like the wording of that they assimilate rather than that they have an opportunity to integrate and feel welcome. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. Strongly disagree. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those without a valid reason. I remember growing up and hearing about this place called the US and learning that people were just allowed to own guns. It was like learning that penguins could once fly. Like, it just blew my top. I think I was like 6 and I was just like, what? Having lived in a country without widespread gun ownership, I'm going to say completely agree. I have learnt more about why people do want to own guns and I understand more sometimes why they'd like to. And I don't think that the answer is to own guns, but I understand their worries more. I support single-payer universal healthcare. What is single-payer healthcare? What does that mean? It's not shameful to not know things. Single-payer healthcare is a type of universal healthcare in which the cost of essential healthcare for all residents are covered by a single public system. Cool. Strongly agree. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. Social progress? No, because if it's true social progress, the costs shouldn't be bad. Technological progress? I'm going to say agree. Genetic modification is a force for good, even on humans. I don't know enough about that subject. Yeah. Let's sing it one more time. I'm still learning and I haven't formed an opinion on that. Christmas number 1. We should open our borders to immigration. Strongly agree. It's important that we further my group's goals above all others. You nearly caught me there. It's a disagree. Depending on my group. I'm part of a lot of groups. Some of them are voluntary, flexible. Some of them are just facts, like my race and my sexual orientation. So what's a group? Is it a glassblower group? Is it a radio club? Is it a Ramblers collective? So I'm going to say disagree. Oh, okay. Here are my results. 88.5% for equality over markets. unsurprising, meaning I am a socialist.
Because I'm literally a communist.
Glad that we're doing the big reveals here. I wouldn't want to keep you here under false pretenses. On the diplomatic axis, I am 32% nation and 67.8% world, although we've said that I don't think they're mutually exclusive, so it's a bit more complicated than that. So I am peaceful. Civil axis, 74.2% about liberty and 25.8% about authority, which makes me a liberal. I am 15.6% about tradition and 84.4% about progress, which doesn't mean I don't like a good Kaylee, and it doesn't mean that I want to deprive other people of their fun traditions or their meaningful spiritual traditions. It's just that not all traditions make for a fun time for everyone. So my closest match is libertarian communism. I largely agree with that result. I think it was an interesting quiz to take. And I think it's really cool to like use it as a way to like bounce off and like have a good discussion with people. Especially I feel like now that lockdown is easing, well, in my country it is a little bit anyway, I'm kind of worried about making conversations with people. I'm worried about having empty conversations with people. I'm worried about being really shit at making conversation because nothing really has happened in my life that much this year. And I'm worried about not assessing how much the world has shifted in the past 12 months and how it could shift in the future. Some books that I'd recommend on that right now, if you want to like think more about these topics and also like the way the world's going and whether you feel hopeful or not, are any of these books. I think they're all really great and you should look into them. Don't sleep on yourself and miss out on that Skillshare link. The first 1,000 people get it, so make sure you're in that number when the saints go marching in. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Here are some more videos that I've made. I hope that you will subscribe and stick around. I have been Lena Norms. You have been you, intrinsically linked to your own beliefs and values and opinions, but also sitting in your worth without them, ready to let them go should someone explain a way to be more pragmatic with the facts and or kinder to other people. So I wish you luck in holding those values close and also being ready to let them go when you're presented with new information. I hope you found this fun, and until next time, frog snog out.